Welcome to another episode of the Transforming Lives podcast panel. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Pankhurst.
And I'm Charmin Prince.
And we are here to solve the problems of the world one episode at a time.
Be sure to smash that subscribe button, review, and download. And don't forget to invite a friend.
Let's go. Well, welcome to the Transforming Lives podcast panel. And we're grateful you are all back with us listening today. And today's topic is going to be a little more fun. Some of our topics are a little heavy and need a little debriefing after, but today is going to be all about travel. So there can't be, unless we have some funny horror stories, this should be a lighthearted and enjoyable topic. And we will start today with just a brief grounding, just so that we can be where we are and we can kind of let go of our day and just close our eyes or just close our eyelids slightly and just feet on the ground. Feel yourself in the chair. Feel the air on your skin. Let's take a couple of deep grounding breaths. Knowing you have carved out some time for yourself, and really be grateful for yourself for doing that and be here with us. And today, hopefully have some fun and have a reason to smile and a reason to dream. And we will come back.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so travel. Fabulous, fun, except for, of course, the airports.
Yeah, and the COVID delay.
Yes.
Did anyone get like totally kiboshed by COVID with travel?
I did. I was in Guyana when all the airports shut down. So I was there for, I think, 4 months.
Oh my gosh.
I get stuck somewhere nice and warm and beautiful. Yeah.
And how was that for you though? Were you surrounded by family and you were okay, or?
I was okay. I was surrounded by family. I have my niece and her family there. And because it was the beginning of COVID, I got into my nonprofit mode and I began to share masks, encourage people to wear a mask. So I worked for the couple of months while I was there. I just found things to do. And it's during that time also I created my self-discovery program because I just had to, find things to do and become busy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was caught in Guyana for 4 months.
We had headed over to, because I'm a teacher, of course, March break or spring break if you're in the States. So we had driven over the day they closed the airports. So we'd literally crossed the border and the news came on. And of course, at that time, we don't clue in, like sensible is you're a Canadian citizen, you're allowed to come back to your country. But we just thought, oh, you know what? We were going on a golfing trip and we had rented like a condo. So there was no people around. We could just go grocery shopping and stay in the condo, golf outside, come home. And if you remember March 2020, I don't know about you, but I didn't know how serious, like how globally impactful this whole thing was. It was the unknown.
Yeah.
And so we got over to Myrtle Beach and my adult kids are panicking. Get home. Why are you still there? I can't believe you're still there. This is ridiculous. And I kind of relished in the, welcome to my world for the last 25 years, but whatever. So we cut it short, but it wasn't until we went to one of the major chain restaurants out there. I can't remember what it is. Peter, doesn't matter. We walked in where you usually need a reservation weeks in advance. And we walked in and there was maybe 5 tables in this entire humongous restaurant. And I think that's when it hit me. It was like, oh, this doesn't feel good at all. And so we did cut it short, and we got almost into panic mode. We jumped in the car, we drove straight. We didn't get a hotel, we didn't do anything. We just drove 15 hours straight home. And that by that point couldn't get home fast enough. I think our mindset had changed into not, no, everything's fine. Oh my God, I just want to be at home. So that that was kind of scary.
Yeah, we had some trips planned, which we had to cancel. But I think for us, the hardest part was not being able to travel out to visit my daughter out on the East Coast, because she was going to university there. And, you know, she basically ended up 2 years where she couldn't have visitors, you know, at all. And she couldn't come visit. And so that, I think, was the hardest part of not being able to travel, was, you know, just knowing the impact it was having on her, because she just felt so isolated. But as soon as things started to open up and we're starting to feel safe, I mean, I was one of those people, I couldn't wait to get back out there and be traveling and stuff. But yeah, it definitely, you know, and those first few times getting back on a plane and being in lines at the airport and all of those things, like sort of thinking, you know, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to be safe? And I mean, I know people who passed away from COVID, you know, so, you know, especially I had a friend who, her husband was, I think, 40 at the time, and he unfortunately, you know, around month 4 of COVID got it and died, and you know, was young, and just sort of, you know, knowing someone. So yeah, we definitely sort of pulled back, but very happy to have traveled back again.
Where's everybody's favorite place to go?
Well, I love Aruba. We go to Aruba and we go to Nueva Vallarta a lot. Those are 2 of my favorite places.
I think the only place I've visited twice, 2 places, is Jamaica and the Bahamas. But other than that, it's just one visit. But one of my favorite places that I've visited is Italy. Right, Rome, Sorrento. Yeah, I think that's my favorite place. And I didn't get a chance to tour Turkey because I went on a Mediterranean cruise, because there was a bombing at that time, and we didn't get a chance to tour there. But I think Italy was my favorite, you know. Looking at all the architecture, the culture, the things that you read in books, when you're able to see that and experience that, it's like, you know, the most exciting thing. So I think that's my favorite place. And of course, Cancun, the Mayan village. Yeah.
Yeah, Italy is beautiful. Like I said, when the history comes to life like that, and you realize just how small our impact is on the world, right? Like, we're just a speck of time, and you realize all that has gone on before and all that will go on afterwards. I think you really, when you especially go to, you know, Italy and places, Rome, places like that, you really realize and appreciate it. Whereas you don't see it as much here. Like, I remember the first time that I went, we went on a cruise, and we went to Ephesus in Turkey, and seeing that they had, you know, aqueducts that they had and things that they could use to wash the streets and public toilets and all these things that I thought of that were modern inventions, and realizing that they existed so long before, it was so awakening to that bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that reminds me, I lived and worked in Glasgow, and when I would travel through the UK, I mean, there would be chocolate shops that were chocolate shops 300 years ago and are still a chocolate shop today. Like, just amazing, right?
Yeah.
Favorite place, though, I backpacked. First place I backpacked, I went for a year to Australia, and went on landed in Perth, and then, well, first went to Singapore, landed in Perth, and then went up the west coast to the top, down through the center, and then over to Melbourne and up Sydney, and got work on off of the Great Barrier Reef at Club Med, and then traveled back down and ended up in Tasmania for 6 months. And it's just so, I just so recommend, if you have the means, and I really understand not everyone does, but to get a backpack and a work visa and just to see the world that way. It's just such a different way to really immerse yourself in absolute difference.
My dream is to backpack South America. I've always wanted to do that, despite I am from South America. To travel from Guyana to Brazil. I went to Brazil and I crossed the border. But to do that backpack, travel light and just travel through South America, through Uruguay, Paraguay. So that was exciting to hear you did that. I've never met anyone who did a backpack, so that's exciting. It's something that I dream of, and I think it's still on my bucket list.
Yeah, that would be amazing as a trip. Like, one of those things that I wish I had done when I was younger, gone on a backpack. We had friends for their honeymoon. They went on a 1.5 year backpacking across the world trip. That was their honeymoon. They just got their backpacks and they had made the pictures that they took. Right, there's so many different ways to travel, right? When you do a trip like that, you're really in the culture and you're experiencing it. And even when you travel and you're staying at a hotel, you can choose to be going to the local restaurants and experiencing the local culture, or people choose to be an all-inclusive and just sit on the beach and they don't experience that at all, right? Like we never do all-inclusives because, well, I don't drink a lot and we don't eat a lot, so it doesn't make sense. And I like to experience that actual place and the way that people live there, and the restaurants and the places where the people who live there go. To me, that's more of what I like to do when I travel.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I was so grateful for it. And now that my kids are turning of the age that I was, right, when I went, I backpacked off and on for 6 years. And it just, just the absolute freedom of buying a bus pass, and wherever you get off the bus is the adventure that you're going to have. Like, right, nothing pre-planned, nothing. And I remember I was living in Melbourne and I wanted to get to Tasmania because there's this place called Wineglass Bay, and it's Bichano, and it looked absolutely glorious. And so I went and bought a ticket, and my friends didn't believe that I was leaving. And these are friends that I had met while I was there. One was Canadian and one was from Glasgow. And they didn't believe I was leaving. And I got up in the morning and I'm like, I'm leaving. And they still didn't believe it. And I packed my little backpack and they still didn't believe it. And I left. And while I was on the plane, I don't know what I was thinking, but the announcement came over that we would be landing in Burnie. And I was like, I'm going to Bichano. But somehow, I don't know why, I guess they both started with a B. And where I landed, if you look at Tasmania, it's shaped like this, and I landed here and I wanted to be here. So I got off the plane and it was the middle of the morning, and a man in the shuttle picked me up and was like, "What are you doing in Burnie?" Like, very thick Tasmanian accent. And I was like, "I'm trying to get to Bichano." And so he drove me to the little town, I think it was called Penguin, and you could take a bus there. And the bus didn't go for hours. And I remember going, I was so tired, and wrapping my backpack around my legs and sleeping on one. And it was really gray and overcast, and fell asleep on the bench. And when I woke up, it was the beautiful sun and all these families were out on the beach. And I felt like a really ragamuffin, and got on the bus and ended up taking the bus all the way to Hobart, and met friends that are still so close to my heart and like my family, and ended up being in Tasmania for 6 months. So it's kind of cool how what you didn't know you needed, you got.
Wow, I just think it's so amazing and brave to just sort of go backpacking by yourself. Like honestly, like I would love to backpack, but I don't think then, and I don't think now that I am the one that's brave enough to do a solo adventure like that.
I want to do the Camino. Oh, that is my bucket list. I want to do the Camino. And I was listening actually to a podcast about, who was it? He was a young star when we were younger in movies, and it'll come to me later. But he went with his son. First, he went himself.
Charlie Sheen,
No,
Emilio Estevez. Yeah.
no, no. But that era. Anyway, it'll come to me. But anyway, he went on his own and then came back, and he took his 22-year-old son, and he said, never had an experience like that in his life, because you're just walking and talking and sharing, and you have nothing else to do but walk and talk and share. And he said it was like 10 years of family therapy for him and his son. It was just phenomenal. But when I think of that, I think, oh, that would just be so cool.
Now, refresh my memory, because I've heard of it, but I can't remember the details of what that is, and our listeners may not know what the Camino is. Can you elaborate a little bit about what that exactly is?
So it's the walk between, is it Monaco? Wait a minute. Oh, I'm going to draw a blank because it's Freedom 55 in my head.
It's in Spain. I'm just bringing it up.
Yeah, it's going from Spain to.
Shirley MacLaine did it and wrote a whole book on it, The Camino.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that would be interesting.
It's really long too, right? Like it takes
Oh,
you.
yeah. It's like 500, is it 500 kilometers? Because you can stay in between. Like there's hostels and Airbnbs and hotels that cater to people doing this walk.
It says it follows the footsteps of pilgrims since the Middle Ages.
Yes.
And how long does it say it is? And how long does it take most people to actually do it? I guess a lot of people would do parts of it because it sounds like you need to commit a lot of time and be in very good shape. Thing.
And you can totally do parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have here, it takes about 30 days and it's nearly 500 miles.
Wow.
Well, thank you. I've never heard of it, so I'll be going and read about that.
Yeah, I will offer. It says it runs from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port on the French side of the Pyrenees to Roncesvalles on the Spanish side before making its way through to Santiago de Compostela to the major cities of Pamplona, Lograno, Burgos, and Leon.
So cool.
Leon.
Yep, that's a bucket list. My bucket list is, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I have a really long bucket list too.
And Italy is definitely one. I want to go to Tuscany. I want to go on like a writer's retreat and just do the wineries and just the little, mom and pop restaurants on the side of the hills. Oh,
Yeah, I want to do Australia. That's on my bucket list. And I want to go back to Greece, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I want to do a safari. I love animals. I'd love to do like a safari or a rainforest trip, although I'm allergic to bees and wasps and hornets and stinging bugs. So I'm like a little bit nervous of that on the one hand, but on the other hand, I would love to do something like that.
I want to see the sunset on Kilimanjaro. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's on my bucket list.
And I
And
want to get to Iceland too.
I remember my friend went to Iceland and I remember they were doing a great sale. Like Iceland's one to watch because they did, was it Iceland? Yeah, that they would, if you bought a ticket on Iceland Air to like Europe, you would get a bonus trip to Reykjavik just for flying through Iceland Air to Europe or the UK, or like just phenomenal.
Yeah, Iceland Air does that where I think it's like you can stop there for 5 or 6 days. And Copa Airlines does that with Panama. You can stay for 6 days when you're like, as part of your going through to somewhere else. If you book on their airline, you can have like a 6-night stay, I think it is. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
My great grandmother was from Iceland, so I've got some Icelandic roots there.
That's cool. Okay, how do we feel about cruises?
Cruises.
Yeah, I can't stand them. You know what we want to do is like a small riverboat cruise, but we want to do the UK. And I mean, you have to be a golfer to appreciate this particular bucket list, but it's called Perry Gulf, and it's a very small cruise ship. There's like 250 people on it. And so what you would consider a suite on the Odyssey or whatever the big cruise ships are would be like 5 rooms. So they put 5 rooms together. So they're huge, and there's balconies, and they take you through the UK in the river, and they stop at, St. Andrew's golf course, and they just take your clubs off for you, and they're waiting at the golf course for you, and you have like the famous golf game, and then you go back and they take you to Ireland and you golf in Ireland, and you go to the Guinness brewery, and that's the kind of cruise. Those big cruise ships, I went once, never again. Waiting in line, paying all that money to wait in line for everything, and I know people love it, but I can't.
Yeah, I don't like the monster huge cruise ships that have like the skating rinks and all. Like, I don't like a ship like that big. I like sort of more of a mid-sized ship, so there is some entertainment and things like that, but I like kind of like the getting a taste of each different place and then kind of deciding where it is you want to go back to and spend some more time. One of our cruises, we stopped in Barcelona, Spain. And it was like on that particular cruise, I think we did 10 stops or something, but it was definitely like, this is a place I need to come back to and spend some time, because you could just see there was just so much that you could do there. So I like the fact that you don't have to pack and unpack and, that kind of thing, and you get a taste of each thing. But I don't like, as you say, like, the lineup. So I never do like the big ships, because that's just, too much for me. But I am doing an Alaskan cruise, which I think is a small to medium-sized cruise. I'm leaving next week, so I'll tell you about it next time we talk about travel.
I live in a port where we get cruise ships, and I'm not a cruise shipper, and I don't mean this in a judgmental way. Just for me, the amount of waste, my understanding that happens, like the food waste and the pollution of the ocean, and and my understanding was as well during COVID, cruises stopped, and like the impact was felt in a positive way, as like I heard, and I don't know that this hasn't to do with cruise ships, but like the Venice Canal was clear, the skies in China were clear. So I just think of how much impact, and I know this isn't where we're going, but just how much impact we have. And so I love to think consciously as well when I'm traveling about to leave only footprints and to try to tread softly. I was fortunate enough when I was in Australia, we were able to go to the Whitsundays and walk on the beach that you can see from the sky, like from outer space. And then there as well, like whatever you bring in, like everything you bring in, including what comes out of your body, has to be taken off with you when you leave. So just being really aware of the impact that travel has as well.
Has anyone ever done like a rainforest or like stayed in like a really unique Airbnb or any of these things? That's something I think would be fun too. I've watched, I can't remember the name of the show, but there was a TV show, and they show that I think it was on Netflix, that was like all kinds of very unique Airbnbs and hotels. So like, like one's in a cave, and one's a remade train, and one's a tree house. And I mean, I think sort of going and doing something like that, like experience something very different and unique. I wouldn't do the ice castles because like I get too cold, but I know that there's one where like they make igloos and you sleep in igloos outside and stuff like that. And yurts, and I mean, there's all kinds of different ones. So I think that something like that might be a fun thing to do.
So we went to Cancun, and Mexico is probably my favorite place to go so far. I just love the people. I love the culture. I love the food. I just love everything about it. But we went on a family vacation, and my dream for my family was we all go horseback riding on the beach. And so we get to the beach, and it's in Cancun, it was the Princess Hotel, like the big fancy, this was a million years ago. And we get there, and we've booked it and paid, and we're waiting, and we've got, our bags, backpacks, whatever you carry, travel bags. And this little Mexican man came up, and he had 10 donkeys behind him. And I was like, oh, that doesn't look like a horse back riding to me. And my kids are like, Mom, Mom, we're not getting on a donkey. I said, listen, we have to adapt and be flexible. So we're like, where do we put our stuff? And he said, oh, I'll hold it. He put every bag like around his neck, over his shoulders, like this. And I was like, well, what are you riding? No, get on. So we get on these donkeys. They were so small, our feet were like dragging on the ground, like you had to lift your feet up. And then the ride was him running behind the donkeys, yelling, "Handale!" and scaring the donkeys so that they would move in one direction. Like, oh my gosh. So the kids would not let me plan any more adventures for them.
Yeah. You know what? I think we've all had that, right? Where you think you organized something and it turned out because of language or whatever, where it's something totally different. We had when we were in Rome, my husband got tickets to go, we figured we'll see the opera there, but we had gone to the opera. If we're going to see it, that's the place to go, is to see it. So, but we had been out all day and walking and everything, and we were in traveling clothes. And we get to the opera and everybody is dressed to the nines and looking stunning. And then there's us all stuffy. And then he thought he had us a sort of a seat up. Then it turned out he had actually gotten us a private box. And so we're walking up and everybody's so elegant. And I'm like, don't look at me, don't look at me. But it was really fun and amazing. And one time, remember the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series? So I loved that book as a kid. Like I loved the whole series. And so I saw that I thought they were doing the play, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like an adult version of it. But it turned out it was actually for 3 to 5 year olds. So there I am I think the whole family were sitting there and it's like for little kids and they were so ready to kill me. But yeah, like I said, you got to adapt and enjoy,
That reminds me of a trip to Costa Rica. And of course, I like adventure and usually I travel alone. So I booked a zip lining trip. And I made friends at the beginning with 2 other women who were there alone. And when we got halfway, because it's like one of the most difficult zip lining adventure in Costa Rica. And when we got halfway, they said, no, they're not doing it. And I'm like, I will continue. But at the end of it, it is the most challenging or difficult adventure I've experienced. Some of the things you had to do was scary. But I paid my money, so I didn't want to give up. But looking back, no, I wouldn't try that again. It was just like a one-time experience. Yeah.
Kudos to you for going through and doing it. Have any of you done at the CN Tower? You can do the walk around the outside of the CN Tower. It's like, I can't even walk over that little clear glass piece they have at the top where you can see down. And I look at that, I'm like, no. My husband, we weren't together. Well, we've just started dating at the time, but he was in Australia, and they also have where you can, that big bridge that you see in all of the pictures and stuff. They have a thing where you can walk along the outside all the ways up and over and along that. And he did that bridge climb when he was there. And I just remember thinking, I couldn't do that with I just don't think I could do that.
When I was there, you could still climb Uluru, which is also known as Ayers Rock. And so we went on it was so cool. We went out, I don't know how many days we were out in the middle of the outback, but we slept out under the stars, and your sleeping bag, you put your sleeping bag in a canvas like rucksack thing that zipped over your head because the snakes would shimmy in at night because they want your warmth. So you go in it and then it's like a body bag really, and you zip over your head. And so nothing can come in and get you're not going to wake up with the snake because they want your warmth because they're cold-blooded. and there's many, like we went to the Olga's and we did so much on this Outback trip, whatever it was called. But one thing that we got to do was about 3 a.m, you start climbing Ayers Rock in the dark, and you climb and you climb and you climb so that you're at the top by the time the sun starts to rise. And it was just so,
That
it's
sounds
just so
beautiful.
cool.
Oh,
That sounds absolutely.
not worth the snakes, but I'll listen to your story and appreciate it from afar. There will not be a snake in my future in my body bag.
We have some amazing pictures from all of these trips. Like I mean, they just sound amazing.
Yeah, I think everybody needs to travel alone, I think, once. I think
Well, I've
it's such
traveled
a-
alone, but it's more like go to a resort and then relax and enjoy the resort and maybe venture out a little. I've never been, I wish I was as adventurous as Kate, but I have not been that adventurous.
Yeah, I would add to that, Cheryl, that the world that we see can be so skewed
Mhm.
by whatever source we're seeing the world. And,
Yeah.
Fear drives consumerism. And when you really get to go to places, you see how genuinely similar, how genuinely good I really believe people are.
Oh,
And like you get to really see people through the lens of your own eyes as
Mhm.
opposed to a skewed lens. So like I said, I get that, I'm aware of a lot of privilege that allowed me to travel.
Mhm.
And also I'm aware that at times I remember being in places that I was so hungry, I would have these weird thoughts of people when they would like walk by, I'd be like, I bet there's food in your fridge when you're going home. Like I remember, I remember that. And I remember being really broke traveling, and all you have is your backpack and you're working to pay for your rooms. And I remember calling my mom, and the best thing she said was, "One flight, Kate, and it's all over. One flight. You want to come home, you can come home, but one flight."
Yeah.
And it just really puts into perspective, right? Yeah, no, I'm staying.
Yeah. My daughter was 22 and she said, I'm going to Paris. Like, soon? Yeah, I'm going to Paris. I'm going for a month. And I mean, she's the strongest, bravest person I've ever met. So I said, okay. And what are you doing there? I don't know yet. Oh, and where are you going to stay? I'll figure it out when I get there. And she looks so young. Like she's young, but she looks very young. She's smaller in stature, so she looks like this little kid. And she just got this backpack, and we're taking her to the airport, and I'm a mess, of course. But oh my goodness, she got there. She took a TESOL class to teach English as a second language. And she stayed at all these hostels, and she was gone for a month, and she just loved it. Like the growth was unbelievable. And you have to just have faith, right? You can't instill any fear in them. It's like, go, I got faith, you got this. I'm not sure I did, but I had to say that anyway. But yeah, and it was probably one of the most influential things she did as a young, strong woman moving forward. It was very cool.
Yeah, I
So
think
yeah, highly recommend.
I think whenever you do something like that, go on an adventure on your own, or try something like skydiving or zip lining or something that's way out of your comfort zone, that it evokes so much personal growth and development and opening up to things, because when you accomplish something like that, like it gives you that new sense of strength and power. That's, I think, one of the great gifts that comes from doing something like that. Have any of you ever done one of those like big train ones, like like the Orient Express, or like the northern one where like you can go up north in Ontario or all across out to BC? I think something like that might be a fun thing to do as well.
Have anyone skydived?
I've parasailed, but that's about as close as I've gotten.
Have you done skydiving?
Yes, I did.
Well, tell us about that. You got to tell us about that.
Oh.
Wow.
I think the scariest part was signing the disclaimer. right? That was the scariest part when you're signing the disclaimer, acknowledging that it's life or death, right? And then you're sitting there waiting and you're putting your hands in your life in the hands of someone who was manually folding the parachute. Right. So, but once you got up there, and I did it tandem, and you jumped out of the plane, it's like, okay. I usually describe it that's an experience of faith, what faith feels like, because you're putting your faith in the parachute, and if the parachute doesn't open, you're done. So, but that free fall is like an experience. I don't know if you can get it any other way. And my best description is like, that's a moment of faith. But the scariest part was signing that disclaimer, not jumping out of the plane.
This is for you.
But wasn't it scary when you're like sort of like on the plane and they're opening the doors and like you're about to go? Like, did you feel like, I don't know, something in your gut say like, holy crap, what am I doing?
Well, in the beginning, it's like, oh my God, I'm not jumping, but there is someone on your back that is going to push you because we got to get out. So I had to get that push, because when the door opened, it's like, ooh, am I doing this? But it was too late to determine if yes or no. So yeah, once you jump, whew,
You're
yeah.
my hero.
Down to the landing, like as you're getting closer to the ground, is it scary as you're getting closer to the ground?
No, because once the parachute is open, you know that there is this other, there is the hope, there is you when yeah, that's how I can, there is the hope, right? Yes, I'm gonna land well. And you have an experienced person with you, so all the fear is gone. But that disclaimer is the thing for me, not jumping out of the plane.
Well, I have to say, Cheryl, I think that Kate and Sherman are much more adventurous and braver than the two of us.
100%. 100%. I didn't even like to fly in the plane. Never mind trying to jump out of it. Not a chance.
Well, I have to say, I am very impressed with both of you ladies for your adventures. And maybe one day I'll get brave enough to take some of those adventures, but kudos to you guys.
Is there anything else you would like to try?
Yes, and despite my age, bungee jumping off of the bridge in New Zealand.
I don't even know what to say.
Miss Adventure Lady, what do you want to try?
I don't know if I want to try any, I don't know what I want to try. Yeah, I don't know. I do know that I'm keen to start running retreats though, so I'm really looking forward to that. Women's retreats and really connecting with land. And I loved, Mitzy, you asked about a rainforest. I live in the rainforest, but I highly recommend if you ever have the chance to get to Haida Gwaii. It's off of the west coast of Canada, and it wasn't touched by the last ice age, and it is just endless beaches. And I took my kids, well, we all went, and we walked for something like 7 hours one day on this endless beach, and we saw 2 people and a dog. Like, it's just magical. And I really also want to say to listeners that think that they can't do it, you totally can. I hear that all the time. Oh, I wish I could do that. You totally can. You totally can do it. It's funny how quickly things can become the priority when we have the shift in our mind that, oh, that's the priority. And I also love to share that anywhere you go, there is work, and retreats need you, and resorts need you. And some of my best, funnest things were like, I worked for Blackcomb at Whistler. I worked for Club Med on the Great Barrier Reef. It's just fun, and you meet such interesting people. And and where there, if it really is a want, it'll happen.
Totally agree.
That is very cool. Yeah, I need to go zip line. I've gone zip lining once here and I loved it. I can handle the heights as long as there's speed. I'm good. Any roller coaster, I'm good. Hang me up there for any amount of time where I can have a chance to think about it. Nope, I'm out. So yeah, but I would zip line, but I would love to do like a zip line through Costa Rica or Jamaica or, oh, that would be a blast.
Try the zip line in Costa Rica because it's in the rainforest.
Yes.
It's in the midst of the rainforest and you will enjoy it.
And there's monkeys in Costa Rica. I need to get a monkey. I know. My partner says the same thing.
Well, I think, I think as we've talked about during this podcast is that, as you can see, when people talk about travel and when think about travel, it inherently brings the smiles and the laughter and the memories and the growth and the experiences and all those things, right? So, I mean, I think that that's one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves. And it doesn't have to be a big trip overseas or something like that. A quick trip to a cottage or, going for a 3-hour drive and then walking around wherever you happen to be, just getting out there and experiencing something different and trying something outside of your comfort zone can be so invigorating, and help you process and move on. So, somebody's going through some trauma or something like that, do something adventurous, get out of your comfort zone, try something to push the envelope a little bit, because that growth that comes from that will fuel the fire to help you with everything else as well.
I love that. And what I would love to add is I love watching travel shows, but what I really have to share is travel ignites all your senses in a way that you just can't experience it in a screen, like the smells, the scents, the sounds, the touch, the feel, the heat, when I was in Singapore, I just remember that was the very first time I walked out of an air-conditioned airport, and that heat wave, like a heat wave, like you don't know what's hit you, and you're like, oh, I'm not home anymore. Like just that awareness of all your senses that this is different.
And there's so many opportunities. I mean, there's, exchange opportunities. It doesn't have to be a financially extravagant. Friends of mine do a home exchange. So they go to France and they're in like a program. So someone else can use their house, their car, everything for no charge at all. They just have to get there. And so talk about immersing yourself in someone's real life, like unbelievable. And it's like, still there's a cost, of course, but it can be, if you really investigate, there can be some nominal cost for you to have these experiences. For sure.
That's a great point. There's things like house sitting, pet sitting. So, you can make it much more cost efficient and go and really experience what the culture is like and stuff. And, it's funny when you were talking about the sights and the scents and the sounds and everything, Kate, went from traveling. It reminded me, one of a great trip we had is we went to Nashville for the solar eclipse. And I think it was like 2017, 2015, something like that. And it was such an amazing experience because, it's the middle of the day. And of course, the moon is coming and eclipsing the sun. But what happened was, and what was so neat was, as it was getting darker, all of the day life animals started to disappear, and all of the nighttime animals came out, like the tree frogs and all these different, the bats and all these things. And then as the eclipse was leaving, all the night ones disappeared and all the day ones came back. And it was seeing it happen in such a quick pace. It was really, really cool. Like one of those experiences that just nothing's ever been like it before or since, because it was just so different. And it was like it's getting to experience the whole thing, like, sped up, right? Because instead of it happening over many hours, it was over however long the the clips took. So like you can have really cool experiences if you sort of think about and plan, and they don't have to be major, major things.
I think oftentimes when we speak of travel, a lot of we often think of the finances behind it, and it's going to cost so much. But as you all listed, there are ways that to minimize the cost also. And with Airbnb, and you're going to a home with a host who lives there, you'll get and you'll have exposure to the culture. That host will take you around to places that if you're in a hotel, you wouldn't be able to go. So there are so many options available. But I think that traveling opens our mind and open our senses and cause us to become more cross-cultural.
And I think the fear of travel is so much less than actually getting there. So like any big decision, the fear, the inertia is so much worse than actually saying the words or doing the thing or whatever. We just got to be brave and just do it. Just
Do it, as Nike says. Just do it.
Just do it.
Awesome. Well, I think this was a really interesting discussion for our listeners, and we would love to hear some of our listeners, feedback on some of their favorite trips, or give us some good ideas of where we should go. And, we may end up doing a retreat for all of our visitors. You come meet us in person, give us some ideas down the road. Maybe we'll do something and we'll all get to travel together.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this memory lane. It's just brought back so much fun memories, and it's been so cool to hear your experiences and the laughter. And it was almost like being transported back for me and to places that I've never been. Like when Charmin shared and Cheryl shared and Mitzy shared, it just, you could almost see, like I could feel almost, oh yeah, that's what it's like when you go. So thank you so much for that.
I feel like
Thank
I
you.
know all three of you so much better just from this last hour.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. This was fun.
Yes, thank you for listening to the Transforming Lives panel podcast, and we will talk to you again next week. And that's a wrap for the Transforming Lives podcast panel, where we strive to embrace, inspire, and empower our community.
Be sure to subscribe and download. Also, don't forget to leave a review and check the show notes for resources and contacts for all of us. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.
Thank you, Charmin.
Thank you, Cheryl.